All right, we are on day 2. Have your notes with you so you can take some notes about the different time periods and the different dates. So, today you're going to continue your biography timeline. Remember, a biography is written by someone else about someone, okay? So, by someone else about someone. So let's have our timeline notes ready and let's continue. All right. Our next major topic in his life was called the March on Washington. Remember, use those headings to help guide your thoughts. So in my notes, I wrote March on Washington. Let's see if I can find any dates. Hello, Dr. King. All right, on August 28th, 1963, came to the March on Washington. Um, Listen to speeches by civil rights activists. Okay, most came. So this was a pretty big deal. So August 28th, 1963, that was the March on Washington, where it looks like nearly 250,000. Oh, wow. 250,000. That's a lot of people that came to support the civil rights movement to give African Americans the same rights as everyone else. Well, that is I if you want to see a video on that, type in Google and type in YouTube March on Washington. It is very, very powerful to see people from all walks of life coming together to support this movement. All right, let's have our notes. He had a dream. Oh, he declared that his 4 little children will one day live in a nation. I'm going to let you guys read that, and I want you to read that as if you are giving this speech. So it looks like August 28th, 1963, the March on Washington, that's also when he had given that his famous I Have a Dream speech, okay? Let's see. Oh, wow. There is a picture of the March on Washington when he gave his speech. I told you it was very, very moving and very, very powerful. And it just makes you feel like proud to, I bet the people who were there felt pride and proud being able to participate in this. Just like when our last reading story, when the family all gathered around the TV to watch the gentleman land on the moon. This was one of those moments in history where everybody was tuned in and everyone was watching. Amazing. Okay, so I'm going to let you guys read that. Okay, got my notes. Oh, the Nobel Prize. All right, I've heard of that before. Many people get that often. See, as I'm doing this, when you are doing this, you should be saying these things to yourselves. That is what good learners do. They say things to themselves. It's kind of like you're talking to yourself, but you're taking in the material and making connections. All right, so he was designated Times Man of the Year. Wow, Man of the Year. What's a Man of the Year 1963. He won the Nobel. Wow, he donated. Wow, he even donated his money. That is commendable. A lot of us think if we get money, we would keep it for ourselves, but read that. Wow, 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 wow. That's when he got that. All right, got that in my notes. All right, let's see. That's him with whom? Let's see. He was 30, wow, 35 years old. He received that. That is a huge honor. That's only given to people who have made huge differences in our world. Let's see here. What else do we have? The Last Days. Okay, The Last Days. Let's see what this is about. All right, I'm going to let you guys read this. Many of you put this in your KWL chart that you had known that this had happened. But in 1968, I'm going to go ahead and put that Martin Luther King traveled to Memphis, Tennessee in support of African American sanitation workers. On April 3rd, he gave what would become his last speech. So I'm assuming in 1965, let's see what happened. He wanted a long life. He said he had been warned of danger in Memphis, but said death didn't matter because he'd been to the mountaintop and seen the promised land. So guys, this is the date in history where he was killed. He was warned that this would potentially happen. He was actually at a hotel when this had occurred. You can go to this area and visit his memorial. It's basically like time has stood still. I had a few students in the past who have gone to this location and they shared their experiences from there. And a lot of them said that when they go, it brings out tears and it's just sad and it gives you chills. One of my students last year went and him and his mom got to visit not only the place where Martin Luther King had passed away, but also got to visit his childhood home and just said that it was a very moving experience. This is definitely on one of my bucket list of things to do, just because I think that it would be a powerful experience just to stand where he stood and just to live out the legacy of his life and to honor him. So in 1968, he did pass away. Um, and if you guys are aware of how he had passed away, I'm going to leave that discussion up to you and your teachers and your classmates. Okay. So if you have questions, make sure you ask your teachers. All right. So then he was murdered that following day. Okay. So yes, he was murdered. He was shot. He was assassinated. They do know who did it, but I don't like to focus on the person who had done it because I don't think that that name should be talked about in history. What we need to be focusing on is Dr. Martin Luther King. That is what matters, and that is what is important, is him. We don't want to give any glory or recognition to the person who had committed this crime. So now that we have finished that, he does have a legacy, which means what did he leave behind? Why is he celebrated? What is his legacy? So he achieved so much in a short amount of time. Okay. He had over 6 million miles. King could have gone to the moon and back 13 times. Instead, he traveled the world making over 2,500 speeches. So, this is kind of a summary of all the different things that he had done. Now, he wrote 5 books. He led 8 major nonviolent efforts for social change, and he was actually arrested over 20 times for his beliefs. A lot of times when you're younger, they don't let you know those things, but he was arrested for his beliefs because at that time, he was trying to make the change and he was going against what rules and laws were set into place. So yes, he was arrested, but he did it out of the assumption that this is for change. So even though he was arrested, it was in a good way. He was arrested. I guess it's not good that you're arrested, but he was doing it to make change. Okay. It was all for change. So maybe that's something new that you weren't aware of that you want to put in your KWL chart. And then, this is a huge change, and look at how long this took. This is what bothers me is this took. He passed away in 1968, right? In 1983, finally, okay, after almost 20 years ish, right, 60 to 83, about 20 years. President Ronald Reagan, so finally, after 20 years, okay, created a national holiday to honor him. 20 years it took us to honor him. 20 years. The man pretty much gave his life for what he believed to support others, and it took us 20 years. I'm thankful somebody did finally recognize him. Ronald Reagan did. Okay. But it took that long. And this is why we have the celebration is thinking because of thanks to President Ronald Reagan. Okay. And that's why we have that Monday off in January, the third Monday, I think it is in January, because it's around his birthday. So it won't always fall on his birthday, but it'll be around his birthday. It's always the week of the 19th, 20th, something like that. Okay. So now we are to use that day to think about him, to honor him, and also to go out and do community service and something kind. So remember, you should be doing something kind. Okay, so let's see now what we have to do. And I went ahead and wrote that in my notes. I put that Ronald Reagan gave a national holiday for the Martin Luther King Day. Okay. And here are my notes. I just have a date and a little summary. Okay. Oh, and look at that. That is his wife and his 2 children. You know what? Look at that. His daughter looks just like him. A lot of times we don't get to see this side of him. It's always him, giving his speeches, but he did have children that are alive. Still, some of his children are alive. I do think all of them are. Actually, I'm not 100% sure on that. I'm going to look that up and I'll let you guys know. But I do believe majority of his children are alive. I'm not sure about his wife, if she is still alive, but this is them in their home in 1963. So this was the same year that he had given his speech. Look at this son. He's so stinking cute with his little suit. And just, I love that he's fixing his tie. Just look at the pride that he has for his children. So a lot of times we don't get to see this side of him, but he was a legacy. He was not only a great activist for African Americans, but he was a father too. So that might be something new that you learned, or maybe a question you had was, did he have any kids? And he sure did. He had three beautiful kids. And oh my gosh, I cannot get over that. Look at his daughter. His daughter looks just like him. Oh my goodness. And there is his signature. That is how he wrote his name in cursive, which we have not done much cursive in fourth grade. Hard to do cursive on a computer, but in fourth grade, we typically would do cursive. So I'm going to leave you with that heartwarming picture and just take a moment to take that in. All right, now the activity. All right, I'm going to say bye-bye to myself, bye me, and I'm going to show you this timeline. Now, the whole point of this was to, yes, learn about Dr. Martin Luther King, honor him, but it was also to learn about the genre of biographies, okay, by someone else about a person. All right, but it's also about a timeline. So what we are going to do today now is we are going to drag and drop the key events in his life. Now, if you have your notes and you've been taking notes this whole time, guys and gals, you should be able to look at your notes and then plug in the key events under the dates. All right. So what I need for you to do is to look at all these different things that had happened. So I'm going to start with this. Martin Luther King gets his bachelor degree. The Montgomery bus boycott begins. Martin Luther King becomes a preacher. He receives the Nobel Peace Prize. All right. If you have your note, you won't have to go back and forth and scroll up. If you have your notes, you should just be able to do this with ease. Now, we're going to start with 1929. Hopefully your notes go in order of this timeline. So in 1929, remember, a timeline starts the furthest date. So that was the date that Dr. Martin Luther King was born, obviously. So we have to find that detail. So Martin Luther King Jr. was born 1929. So I'm going to drag that tidbit of information and I'm going to put it under 1929. And just to be sure, I'm going to go back to that. Oh, yes, January 15th, 1929. And I did have that in my notes as well. All right, so we're going to continue. So now we need to find out, you know what I would probably do next? I would always do the person's birthday and the person's, I cannot say person today, death date, okay? So we know that he was assassinated. If I look at my notes, it was when he was at that hotel and he was talking about the sanitation workers and trying to get their rights in 1968. So I'm going to go ahead and I am going to drag that detail under 1968. Okay, now another key event that we should be able to identify right away is his speech. When did he give his speech? So let's see if I can follow the headings. Let's see, the last days, Nobel Peace. See how the headings are helping us to find our dates. So what did I want to do? I wanted to do his speech. When did he give his speech? His speech was March on Washington. So that was in 1963 he did that. And I checked my notes, 1963, absolutely. So I'm going to find that detail where it says, let's see, it says, he gave his, the famous I Have a Dream speech, 1963. All right. So from 63 to 68, look at how long of a life he lived from 63 to 68. A lot of people in our minds, we think, oh, he gave his speech and then he was assassinated like the day after or a couple weeks after. But no, there was a huge chunk of time from 68 to 63. There was 5 years in between there. So he had 5 years where he had people threatening his life and people were making threats to him and his family. So for 5 years, he lived in fear. And the one thing that we learned from him is he did not let fear stop him. So here are some other bits of information. So Martin Luther King gets his bachelor degree. So bachelor degree was his schooling. So you're going to go back up and you're going to see if you can find when he went to school. So let's look at look at the headings of the slides to help you. So it looks like he got his bachelor's degree in 1948. So I'm going to take that information and I'm going to drag that to 48. Okay, so each one of these dates should have a detail that goes along with it. Okay, so while you're done, you should have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more down here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the rest of these 5 should follow the same pattern and you should be able to match them. Okay, so remember, use this detail. So this one says a Montgomery bus boycott. Go back to the slide with that heading. So here's your Montgomery bus boycott, and then you should be able to find a date somewhere on that page or if you have your notes, okay? So continue filling out this timeline, and then when you are finished, go back to your KWL chart and type in something new you learned about Dr. Martin Luther King, because I hope and I bet some of you learned some new information today. Oops, wrong one. Some new information today about Dr. Martin Luther King. And remember, as you move forward into the week, make sure you are doing something kind for others.